everybody. Today we are talking about how I plan my social media content. You might notice that we're in a little bit of a new location, and that's because we're working from my new office. So I was recording videos at home and I'm moving into a new office space. We're still kind of getting things worked out. Once it's settled, I have a video planned for you, a tour of the office and all of that. But for right now, we're working with this little area. I'm excited to talk to you about this particular topic today. So if you found me on YouTube, you might not know that I have lots of other things going on. YouTube is my newest content baby, but I have lots of other platforms in which I produce content. So we have a podcast, I have 3 Instagram accounts, and a Patreon, not to mention all of my other programs. I have courses, membership programs, and so much more. I wrote a book, I'm working on another book. So there's a lot of moving pieces in my world, and I get asked all the time, how do you do this? Like, how are you managing all of this, and how do you keep track of what goes up and when it goes up and where? And how do you make sure that that's actually gonna produce results? So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is how do we grow these accounts, right? If you're finding me on YouTube right now, you might be like, what do you mean grow this account? This is a new baby account. But I do have Instagram accounts upwards of 500,000 followers that I grew organically. You know, no ad spend, no cross promotion strategies, nothing dicey or weird. I just grew it organically. And when people ask me this question, the thing that I want them to know first and foremost is that consistency is the key to growing on social media. It's kind of this mixture of things, partially right time, right place, right? Getting content that is new and fresh and isn't already being done. Part of it is making sure that your content is contributing to your audience in some way. They're getting something from it that benefits their life. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is the shareable. Yes, maybe this, when someone finds it, if they find it, it will be interesting, but how are they going to find it? Am I going to create content that's shareable? Am I going to go out and meet people myself on social media? What is my strategy for getting eyes on the content? It doesn't matter how good your content is. If no one's coming to see it, then it doesn't really gonna get seen, right? For me, a lot of what I work on is shareable content that people want to share in their stories, or maybe they want to share with a friend, that kind of thing. But the big thing here is consistency, because it doesn't matter how good my content is, it doesn't matter how many people are coming to my feed. If I post 5 days a week this week and then I don't post anything next week, they can't count on me. So when I start to post again, they're confused about who they followed, why they followed me. They didn't have enough time to buy into me and to really trust me or believe in what I had to offer. And so they're fair weather followers at that point. So what I want to create is stability and consistency, somewhere where they know, I know that this person's showing up in this way, I know what to believe in, I know what to count on, and they know that I will be showing up on a regular basis every single week. So we're gonna dive into how I create consistency in all of these different platforms right now. So I touched on this a little bit, but I wanna really paint a picture here for you on my social media. So what I'm actually creating content for. So we have YouTube, we have a podcast, we have my Patreon account, we have 3 Instagram accounts, Your Coffee at Home, which is for coffee content, Sarah Jane Case, which is goal-oriented, self-care oriented, and then we have Enneagram Coffee, which is all about the tool, the Enneagram. If you haven't watched my introduction video to that, then you can find it right here. Just click on the link and you can find out what the Enneagram is and why I like to teach on it. But that's 6 different platforms that I'm creating content for every single week. Here's how we do it. So phase 1, right, is our idea phase. It's just getting the ideas out of our brain, onto paper, put it somewhere where we can reference it later. A lot of times where people get stuck in content creation is they go to create a post and they don't know what they're gonna write about. They don't really have any ideas. And that's because we're oftentimes naive enough to think that our ideas come to us at will, right? Like we can just call our ideas into play whenever we need them. And honestly, for me, that's not how it works. Typically, my ideas come to me at the most inconvenient times. It's while I'm driving my car, or while I'm taking a walk, or while I'm in the shower. It's not usually when I sit down to create my content. So I have a note for every piece of content that I need to create, right? A YouTube note, a note for each Instagram account, a note for the podcast, and a note for Patreon. What that means is just a note in my phone. So I have an iPhone, a MacBook, and an iPad. They all link together and they use the Notes app. If you don't use Mac products, that's totally fine. You can download Notability or another note-taking app that will work just fine for you as well. The reason that I use the app and not a piece of paper is because I almost always have my phone on me. My phone has my wallet attached to it, so 99% of the time I'm near my phone. If I'm not near my phone, like when I do an unplugged day or an unplugged week, I keep a piece of paper by me and I will write it down and then I'll transcribe it into the note later. But the reason that this is important is because when I get my ideas, then I have a quick place to put the idea for now, and then I can go back when I go to create the content and I can really flesh it out, but I'm not gonna lose that idea, right? So many times we think, oh, I'll write this down later, I'll remember it, and we don't. The reality is that we forget as soon as we walk away from that moment. Most of the time, unless it's an idea that we are particularly passionate about, we're not gonna remember what we had originally thought we had to say. So I put the note in my phone or my iPad or my computer, depending on what I have around me, and then I can go back and create the content later. I do this with the books that I write. So I did it with my first book and I'm doing it right now with my second book. I have an entire folder in my Notes app just for the book and all of the story ideas that I have written out, so that when I go back, I can every day, I just write for a few minutes and I flesh it out, and then I can add that to my revision process. So notes on your phone for your ideas. Step 2 is determining your rhythms. So when I say rhythm, it's really just knowing what you're gonna post and when you're gonna post it for every account. Really committing to a rhythm or a pattern so that 1, you're consistent and your audience knows what to count on, but 2, so that you don't have to work so hard to think about what you're gonna create. So every single platform that I have has some sort of a pattern or a rhythm that I just need to fill in the pieces for. It's almost like a content creation Mad Lib, right? Like I know what I need, I just don't know the exact details of what's gonna go there. So here's what it looks like for me on every platform that I do. It's simple as for YouTube, I post every Sunday and Wednesday, so I know I need 2 videos a week, and I typically like for one of those to be me talking to the camera and one of those to be a little bit more vlog-like. Maybe a morning routine, a makeup routine, something like that. The second one is my podcast. I do a podcast every single Thursday, so I know I need 1 podcast a week, and I have kind of a rhythm of what I post about. I have a series that I'm doing. Right now I'm doing subtypes. Then I have behind the scenes post series that I do, and then I do these mistyping episodes, and I try to alternate those. For Patreon, I do 1 podcast a week. This is usually a little bit more free flow, a little bit more what's going up, but I know my structure. There's a consistent outline with this podcast. So I always talk about 3 things that are going on for me that week, and 3 things that I'm learning, and then something about the Enneagram that's up for me that week. And then I always end with telling them thank you for being there and asking them to engage with me in some way. Now for the Instagram accounts, all 3 of them are very different. We're gonna start with Sarah Jane Case, which again is my self-care, my goal-oriented one. I focus mostly on stories for this account in terms of my rhythm and my structure, but my feed itself is kind of free flow. I write when I feel like it, I post when I feel like it, but for my stories, I do the same thing every single week. Mondays, I do Mindset Mondays. Tuesdays, I do Day in the Life days. Wednesdays, I do what I call a weekly roundup, where I share ways you can work with me, some people I think you should connect to, and something I'm loving right now. Thursdays, I do something called Small Joys, where we look for little joys throughout our life. And Fridays, I do Q&As. Now, then we move on to Your Coffee at Home. Your Coffee at Home is our smallest account and kind of my hobby account. And so for that, I post 3 times a week, both in stories and on the feed. For the feed, it's pretty consistent. We post 3 recipes every single week. But in stories, we do Tip Tuesday, What We're Drinking Wednesdays, where we share what we're drinking all day that day. And then on Thursdays, we do Q&A there as well. Now for Enneagram and Coffee, it's kind of the opposite. Stories are completely free for all. Like I mostly repost when I'm tagged in. Every once in a while I'll pop on and talk to the camera if I'm feeling like it, but the feed is its own rhythm. So I do 2 kind of types of posting, where I'll do a post for every single Enneagram type. So there's 9 types. So I'll rotate between a post for every type, and then the next week I'll do a list post, a graphic, and a list post. I know, okay, next week I need 2 list posts and I need a graphic post. And then the week after that, I know I need a post for each type. So I just have to fill in the gaps of what that is. Again, the benefit here is that the structure is in place. I don't have to decide every week what I'm gonna make out of the blue. I just know I need to fill in the pieces of the structure that's already here. Okay, so how do I know that I'm going to follow through with this? How do I make sure that this all happens? And how do I make sure that this fits in with my life and my schedule? And that's where I do the monthly planning session. So I do a big monthly planning session every single month for every aspect of my business, but in the content creation phase, I start with Google Calendar. In Google Calendar, I have a calendar for every single account I'm creating content for. Each one has a different color, and I go through and I put in place what content I'm gonna make that month. So I reference my idea folder in notes, and I pull those ideas over and I type them into the calendar. This gives me an opportunity to see it all laid out, so I can take note of the fact that maybe I have a really intense series going up on this 1 week for Enneagram Coffee, so maybe my more intense series that I have planned for Your Coffee at Home can come up the next week. That way I'm not overloading myself. This also allows me to look at my actual calendar. What meetings do I have in place? What workshops? Am I recording a workshop for someone else right now? Are there other things on my plate that would make this particularly hard to do? So I can put easier content on the weeks where I have a lot of other things going on. Now, the other reason that I do this is because I launch digital products. And so if I can look at my calendar and see, okay, I'm opening the door to this digital product on this day, then I know that the content leading up to that door opening needs to kind of point us in the direction of the thing that I'm launching. So that's another reason that the calendar is really important for me. Okay, so now we have all of our stuff on the calendar. We can look at it. I can close off all the things and really just get an idea of what the podcast is going to look like this month, or I can do that with, any of my accounts. I can see them alone, or I can see them in conjunction with the other things that I have going on. Once that is done, the big thing that I like to do next, and maybe isn't a step that's not necessary for you, but is very necessary for me, is to take that information and apply it into an app that I use called the Actions app. It's created by Moleskine, which is a journal company, and it's a simple app that you can type in all of your tasks and put a date beside them. So for me, what I do this with everything. I do it with all of my programs, any tasks related to a course that I'm creating. I put them in there, and then I add a date to when that task needs to be done. The reason that I do this is because at the end of the week, I will go in, I'll reference that Actions app, and then I will know what my task list is for the coming week. I've already charted it out, planned it out, and there's no guessing games for me. I can just reference that and pull out the tasks and know what needs to be done. So I find that really easy to actually put it into place. It takes it from like a dream and turns it into a plan for me. And so what I do is I take those ideas from the calendar, I put them into the Actions app, and then I add a date for when I will create that content. The next step, again, is that end of the week meeting with myself. I say meeting, it's really just me hanging out with my planner. But I reference the Actions app, and then I go in and I calendar out on my planner for the next week when I will be creating that content. The things I like to keep in mind are, do I have too many meetings on a certain day to record that content so that it's asking too much of myself? Or are there days where I'm already gonna have makeup on and have my hair done, so that if I'm gonna do a video, that I know I can kind of try and group that together. The other things that I have to keep in mind at this point in my business is that I send my videos to Jenny, my lovely editor, hi Jenny, and assistant, who is amazing. I want to get things to her in time for her to edit them and have them ready to upload. But I also have, for my podcast, a podcast manager who edits my podcasts and uploads them. And I have an ads manager who gets me the ads for the podcast. So I'm having to keep in mind the person who's sending the ads my way to make sure that the right ads are getting added into the right episodes, and then also the person who's editing them so that they can get them up in time. So when I go in to work on my weekly tasks, I kind of take all of that into consideration and put on the calendar what days I'll record what things. Step 6 is just don't freak out. Don't freak out about it, because here's the thing. All of this is a lot. It sounds like a lot. I've developed this process over years and years of blogging to Instagram to creating content, all kinds of places and all kinds of ways. And this is what works for me. What I encourage you to do is to take one little piece of this and implement it into your life, and then as that becomes your new normal, implement a little bit more. So if I were to tell you one thing to take away from this entire video, it would be the rhythms. Really take in what can create a structure for yourself that you can kind of flow inside of. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that there are literally 0 social media emergencies. None. Nothing's bad's gonna happen. The world will not end. Everything's fine if you aren't perfect with your social media performance. If you are consistent, your accounts will grow faster. If you need a break, that's also okay. I just took 2 weeks off in silence on 2 of my Instagram accounts because I needed to rest. And I pre-created content for you guys so you didn't know I was missing. I pre-created content for the podcast, no one knew I was missing. And I pre-created and had scheduled takeovers for my other Instagram account, so no one really knew I was missing there either. But I say that to say that you can take breaks. Don't feel like you have to do this perfectly right away, and don't feel like you will never take a break. The other thing that I want to encourage you to think about as well is that yes, we can prepare all in a month, but sometimes our best content comes organically. It comes from watching and listening to our audience. It comes from circumstances of life, things that are happening in the news, whatever is relevant at the time. And so just because you plan your content calendar out a month in advance doesn't mean that you can't listen to your intuition and pivot to create the content that feels relevant, exciting, and inspiring to you. Because whatever is relevant, exciting, and inspiring to you is likely to be relevant, exciting, inspiring for your audience. So don't ignore your inspiration and your connection to your creation just because you planned something else for that day. Make the more exciting content and keep that other idea for the back burner when you need it later in the month or the next month. Whatever may come up, it'll be nice to have that in your back pocket. Don't feel like you have to follow the calendar strictly just because you said you would. Okay, so that is how I create my content calendar, how I keep track of it, and how I take it from an idea into actual action. I hope this is helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you would like more content creation videos on how to stay excited, how to stay inspired. I have so many more tips to share with you. And as always, if you don't mind, hit the like button if you want more videos like this, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get new videos from me every single week. See you next time. Jenny, what do I do on Wednesdays?